Stardate, Monday.
You talking star dates? It's negative 298,960. Yeah.
What he said. Today, I'm going to be ranking all 13 Star Trek movies, and considering the newest one is going on 8 years old, just general spoiler alert. I don't have a Star Trek shirt, so I just grabbed the first shirt I could find that is science fiction related. Starting off, number 13 is Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Look, say what you will about this movie, William Shatner actually made for a pretty good director. Based on what I've heard, it's probably a good thing he didn't have full creative control over the story, but the direction was on point. The main problem here is the plot. Character stuff mostly works, most of the humor is good, but the story itself is a mess. Also, I hate the reveal that Sybok is Spock's half-brother. Not just because it paints Sarek in a more negative light, but also because it serves absolutely no purpose to the plot. I will say this though, Sybok is a great villain. Apparently he was inspired by real-life televangelists, and, well, for one, I see it, and two, I love it. I just wish the rest of the writing was that good. Although there are a couple moments that will live on forever. The big question, when they're talking to God.
This starship, could it carry my wisdom beyond the barrier?
It could, yes.
Then I shall make use of this starship.
It will be your chariot.
Excuse me.
It will carry my power to every corner of creation.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
Bring the ship closer.
I said, what does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
Who is this creature?
Who am I? Don't you know? Aren't you God?
And also later, not in front of the Klingons. It has moments of greatness. But then there's dumb stuff like Kirk climbing El Capitan because he's the captain. My score is 2 out of 5. Number 12 is Star Trek Nemesis. This is the Die Another Day of the Next Generation, the movie that sent the series out with a whimper. And unfortunately, this movie was seemingly doomed from the start. For the first time, at least in the film franchise, the main plot centered around the Vulcans. So if you hadn't seen the TV shows, then you might feel lost. Tom Hardy plays the main villain, but this was early in his career before he had really figured out his acting style. I go back and forth on whether I think he was miscast or if he's actually great. Because, like, he's committed, I'm torn on whether or not it works.
What is all this about?
It's about destiny, Picard. It's about a Riemann outcast.
You're not Riemann.
And I'm not quite human. So what am I? My life is meaningless as long as you're still alive. What am I while you exist? A shadow? An echo?
If your issues are with me, then deal with me. This has nothing to do with my ship. Nothing to do with the Federation.
Oh, but it does. We will no longer bow before anyone as slaves. Not the Romulans and not your mighty Federation. We are a race bred for war and conquest.
Are you ready to plunge the entire quadrant into war to satisfy your own personal demons?
It amazes me how little you know yourself.
I am incapable of such an act.
You are me!
The director was hired purely to inject some action movie adrenaline into the film, not because he had any love for Star Trek, and it shows. The whole car chase is a big violation of the Prime Directive. And I know characters in Star Trek violate the Prime Directive for various reasons all the time, but usually when they do it, there's a valid, legitimate reason for it. Here, the reason was car chase. The whole Picard clone story could have been great, but the execution was botched. Shinzan has 2 different evil plans for some reason. Capture Picard for a blood transfusion so that he won't die, and destroy the Earth with radiation for some reason. Guess which one got more time and effort dedicated to it? Also, fuck the psychic rape scene and fuck whoever greenlit it. It feels like shock value purely for the sake of shock value, and it just feels gross. With that being said, the movie does have moments of greatness, like all the others. The action is mostly good, the acting is solid as usual, and the effects are pretty good for the most part. Musical score isn't great, but it's not awful. It's perfectly fine. And at least some of the humor works. The score is 2 out of 5. Number 11 is Star Trek, the motion picture. Yes, motion picture. Shut up. To this movie's credit, it looks amazing. All of the effects work and the miniatures and all that, it's all great. Problem is that the script was originally intended for a TV pilot for a new show. It was then changed to a movie, then back to a pilot, then back to another movie. This movie.
Everybody got that? Good!
And it shows. This movie is so slow. The pacing is atrocious. The sequence of Kirk taking a shuttle to the Enterprise lasts like over 5 minutes. All for the sake of just showing off, hey look, we got a budget now. And it gets old after about a minute. And it's not the only instance of it. There are so many other bits here where just nothing happens. The acting is good and the music is great, but there's so much padding here that if you removed it all, the runtime would drop from 132 minutes to somewhere between 50 and 80 minutes. Spock is really the only character who gets any meaningful new wrinkles to his personality. Kirk gets some development, but not nearly as much, and everyone else just seems to be going through the motions because this movie put visuals above all else. The score is 2 out of 5. Number 10 is Star Trek Insurrection. Look, this movie has its issues, but at least it's not boring. It has an interesting setup, and we get to see new sides of our heroes. Unfortunately, like the motionless picture, it feels like an episode of the show stretched out to feature length. Fortunately, it is a full half-hour shorter than the motionless picture, so at least that helps with the pacing.
Why would they duplicate this village? Except to deceive the Baku.
Deceive us.
To move you off this planet. You go to sleep one night in the village, wake up the next morning on this flying holodeck, transported en masse. Within a few days, you're relocated on a similar planet without ever realizing it.
Why would the Federation or the Sona wish to move the Baku?
I don't know.
There's more humor here than some of the other Star Trek movies. The running gag of Worf going through Klingon puberty again perfectly exemplifies this movie's overall humor. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. The action we get is pretty good, the music is good as usual, the effects are on point for the most part, and ultimately this movie just feels like a big waste of potential. The score is 2.5 out of 5. Number 9 is Star Trek Generations. This one is good, but considering that it represents a huge passing of the torch for the series, it needed to be better than just good. The acting is great, and it's wonderful to see Kirk and Picard together. The action we get is good, and the Enterprise's saucer section crashing looks fantastic.
All hands, brace for impact!
Hold on, everybody! Hold on tight!
Hold your head!
That's definitely one point in favor of practical effects. There's a subplot involving Data still adapting to his emotion chip. It's not really connected to the main plot all that much, but it gives us some nice character stuff, and there's some pretty good humor that comes from it as well. The plot is fine overall, but the rules of the space ribbon feel a little yada yada'd. Also, as much fun as it is to see Patrick Stewart and William Shatner playing off of each other, Kirk's death feels pretty underwhelming. I mean, they literally dropped a bridge on him. Although I will say, it's less underwhelming than Data and Nemesis. So, that's something. My score is 3 out of 5. Number 8 is Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. This was the directorial debut of Leonard Nimoy, and I think he did a pretty good job. The story is solid. I like that there's a legitimate reason for Kirk and friends to go rogue this time around, which is not always the case. Special effects are hit and miss, but they mostly hit. The acting is all good, if not great. The writing is mostly good. Christopher Lloyd is hamming it up big time, and the ham-to-ham combat between him and Kirk is just absolutely delightful.
Genesis! I want it!
Beam the Vulcan up, and we'll talk.
Give me what I want, and I'll consider it.
You fool, look around you! The planet's destroying itself!
Yes, exhilarating, isn't it?
If we don't help each other, we'll die here!
Perfect! Then that's the way it shall be!
There's not as much character development this time around, but that's not to say there isn't any. It does drag here and there, but for the most part, the pacing is fine. Some of the aspects of what's happening with Spock are a little disturbing, but fortunately the movie handles them pretty well. The score is 3.5 out of 5. Number 7 is Star Trek Into Darkness. This is the weakest of the Kelvin trilogy, but it's still a solid film. The acting is solid across the board. The special effects are a small step up from the previous movie. The musical score is pretty great. The script is tight. It relies more on nostalgia than the previous film when they might have gone a little too far. But at least they're not just taking old elements and playing them as is. Like, they're taking old elements and trying to find a new way to play them. It doesn't always work, but I can at least appreciate it even when it's unsuccessful, because the effort was there. The action is a step up from the previous movie, especially the fight between Spock and Khan. That was pretty brutal for a PG-13 movie, and I mean, the fact that Khan is able to power through a Vulcan nerve pinch. Holy shit.
Get this guy out of the cryotube. Keep him in an induced coma. We're gonna put Kirk inside. It's our only chance to preserve his brain function.
How much of Khan's blood is left?
None.
Enterprise to Spock. Spock!
And speaking of which, Benedict Cumberbatch, he is no Ricardo Montalban, but he makes this version of the character his own, and it is a treat to watch. And the Admiral is freaking RoboCop. I love that. There's like maybe one or two jokes that don't land, but apart from that, the humor is pretty great. Also, to everyone who is still complaining about how Khan's Superblood is just forgotten after this, shut the fuck up. This is Star Trek. Stuff like that, popping up in one episode or movie and never being mentioned again, is par for the course. Case in point, the time travel from the Voyage home. Yes, I know First Contact also had time travel. I'm referring to that specific method of time travel. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 6 is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Leonard Nimoy returns as director, and he's definitely improved. I don't know if I enjoy this one quite as much as most Star Trek fans, but it's pretty damn great. I love that they named their stolen Klingon ship the HMS Bounty. The journey to the past offers plenty of comedic material, most of which works. I love that the guy that Chekhov asks about nuclear vessels is just some rando on the street, and his reaction is completely genuine.
What does it mean, exact change?
You mind telling me how we plan to convert this tank?
Ordinarily, I could do it with a piece of transparent aluminum.
I'm afraid you're a number of years too early for that.
I know. We got to find the 20th century equivalent.
But where?
Did you find it?
Yes, under U.S. government. Now we need directions. Excuse me, sir. Can you direct me to the naval base in Alameda? It's where they keep the nuclear vessels. Nuclear vessels.
I also like that, unlike a lot of movies, this one remembers that it takes several minutes for your food to be delivered in a restaurant, and it fills that time with, like, dialogue and character development. And I also like when they land and they cloak the ship and Kirk's like, everyone remember where we parked? Just Kirk telling dad jokes is just gold. But alas, I don't consider this movie the masterpiece that so many people seem to. It's great, don't get me wrong, but it's not that great. Some of the humor doesn't work, and for a franchise that goes out of its way to get as much science correct as possible, they fudge quite a bit of it here. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 5 is Star Trek Beyond. As much as I love the J.J. Abrams directed movies, Beyond does the best job of feeling like old Trek without relying too much on nostalgia, or without repurposing old moments and putting a new spin on them. It's just the feel of it, and it works. The returning cast are all great, and Jayla is a welcome breath of fresh air for the franchise.
Come with me. Now.
Wait, now hang on a minute, lassie. I'm having a difficult day here. I've got to find my crewmates.
I will help you find your mates. And then you will help me.
With what? You want me to fix something?
Yes, you help me, and I help you.
All right, well, things being as they are, I doubt I'll get a better offer today, so lead the way.
Good. I am Jayla. And you are Montgomery Scott.
Hi, Scotty.
Come now, Montgomery Scotty.
This is one of 3 movies in the series that feels like an episode of the show stretched out to feature length. But unlike the motionless picture in Insurrection, Beyond actually has a substantial enough plot to make it work. Again, it's just the feel of it. Hell, Kirk even says that things have been feeling episodic in his captain's log. I love that Chekhov gets more focus this time around, especially in light of his death about a month before the film's release. It was nice to spend more time with this version of the character in what would ultimately become his last appearance. I love that we get a bait and switch with the enemy's spaceship, where in the first 2 movies, the enemy is in like one big, powerful ship. And in this movie, early on, the Enterprise comes face to face with big enemy ship, except it's then revealed that it's actually a whole swarm of smaller ships. And they do more damage to the Enterprise than the big ships ever could. And just the whole climax. The way they defeat the enemy with frickin' music is just so funny and badass, and I absolutely love it.
Let's make some noise. That's a good choice.
Also, this bit will never not make me laugh.
What the hell would a Vulcan mineral be doing way out here?
Where are you going with this? Lieutenant Uhura wears a Vokaya amulet, which I presented to her as a token of my affection and respect.
You gave your girlfriend radioactive jewelry.
The emission is harmless, Doctor, but its unique signature makes it very easy to identify.
You gave your girlfriend a tracking device.
That was not my intention.
Oh, one last thing. There's a trope where someone bad, usually a fallen hero, sees their own reflection and kind of realizes what a monster they become and usually has a change of heart. Here, Krall has a moment like that, except he rejects the possibility of redemption and keeps attacking Kirk. Just a nice little bit of expectation subversion. A score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 4 is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Twice, Nicholas Meyer was brought in as director to do course correction after a bad Star Trek movie, and both times he knocked it out of the park.
Can't believe I kissed you. Must have been your lifelong ambition.
This movie is a fantastic send-off to classic Trek and its cast. The humor rarely misses, the action is some of the best in the original movies, and the acting is solid across the board. Spock barking, "Arrest yourself!" will never not be awesome. I love the bit where they beam Kirk and Bones right before the Klingon guard is about to tell them crucial information, and they actually briefly complain about being rescued too soon.
Well.
What took you so long? Kill him, he's the one. Not me, you idiot. Him!
No witnesses.
Killed while trying to escape.
Damn clever, if you ask me.
It's a classic.
That's what they wanted.
Who wanted us killed?
Since you're all going to die anyway, why not tell you? His name is...
No, not... Son of a... Hell of all the... Son of a... Couldn't you have waited 2 seconds, Captain? He was just about to explain the whole thing.
You want to go back?
Absolutely not.
There's a reveal in the movie that's not that hard to figure out, so it's not as big of a surprise as it tries to be, but, you know, it works. It's fine. It doesn't ruin the movie.
Cry havoc! And let's slip the dogs of war!
A score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 3 is Star Trek. Here's a little detail I love. In all of Star Trek prior to this point, phasers had always been laser beams that do concentrated damage over like a second. So high damage, not the best rate of fire. And in this movie's opening scene, when the Narada attacks the Kelvin, we see just how inefficient those phasers are at stopping large number of missiles.
They're launching again! Bravo 6 maneuver fire full...
Fast forward a couple decades into the new timeline, and Starfleet has completely changed their phaser technology to do less damage per shot and have a higher rate of fire.
Fire everything!
Incoming missiles. If the ship is hit, the red matter will be ignited.
Understood.
Captain, I picked up another ship.
In other words, J.J. Abrams finally gave us a Starfleet that understands the concept of point defense. Imagine that. Aside from an episode or two I happened to catch on non-cable TV as a kid, this was my introduction to Star Trek, and goddamn did it catch my interest. The acting is great, the script is tight, the conflicts work, both hero versus villain, and just between the heroes, because there's tension there. It all just works so well. There were certain aspects that were cut out of the theatrical cut, like what happened to Nero and his crew during that time skip, or how he knew where and when Spock Prime would appear. Stuff like that. And it doesn't ruin the movie, but I also kind of wish that stuff like that had been kept in. Obviously, there's some stuff that they cut that didn't need to be left in, but like the important stuff should have been kept in. The humor is great, and they also do a great job of balancing the comedy and the drama, and transitioning in between so there's no mood whiplash. Score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 2 is Star Trek First Contact. This movie is the golden eye of the next generation. The one truly great movie in what is otherwise a quadrilogy of mediocrity. The script is tight, the acting is great, and the Borg look better than ever. So many of the franchise's best moments come from this film. The Borg assimilating crew members like zombies.
Captain, they've adapted.
Lily yelling at Picard to blow up the damn ship already. Data rejecting the Borg Queen and admitting to being briefly tempted.
Watch your futures end.
Resistance is futile.
Zephyr awkwardly greeting the Vulcans and introducing them to human music. The list goes on. And I love that this movie turns into a horror movie for a few minutes when it's first revealed that the Borg are on the Enterprise and they start assimilating the crew. It's only a few minutes, but I love it. It's great stuff. Also, how did I never realize that Lily is played by Alfre fucking Woodard? What a legend. My score is 5 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. This is just straight up one of the best science fiction movies of all time. I've always preferred Star Wars to Star Trek, but if there's one Star Trek movie that's on par with Empire Strikes Back, it's Wrath of Khan. There are almost countless things to talk about in this movie, but I want to talk about the space battle. Movies like Nemesis have these long, drawn-out space battles with the ships on both sides gradually wearing each other down with phasers and torpedoes and whatnot, and it gets kind of boring after a while. Wrath of Khan subverts this by having the battle between the Enterprise and the Reliant take place in a nebula that disables their shield and fucks with their targeting systems. So it feels like submarines silently hunting each other instead of battleships and cruisers slugging it out on the surface.
Torpedoes ready, sir.
The cast is at the top of their game. The writing is some of the best in the original series of movies. The special effects are just as great as they were in the motion picture, which is even more impressive than the motion picture, considering this movie had a fraction of that movie's budget. And I love that Kirk and Khan have such great antagonistic chemistry, even though they're never in the same room. That blows my mind. I love it. My score is 5 out of 5. Hey everyone, what's your ranking? Let me know down in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, tell me why, try to be constructive. Then subscribe anyway. You'll be notified when I upload a new video, watch that, and then tell me why that one sucks, or where I've improved. Or both. I have a Patreon with some exclusive content and plans to add more. It's 2 tiers. The first tier is just access to the exclusive content, and the second tier is you can commission tribute videos. So, if that interests you, the link is in the description. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times. Or, I guess, signing off.